Robin Waite is the guy business coaches, consultants, and freelancers turn to when they're ready to stop grinding and start growing properly. As the founder of Fearless Business, he's all about helping people double their income without drowning in clients or burning out. Known as the Fearless Business Coach, Robin's worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, spoken alongside huge names like Alex Hormozy and Chris Du, and has been invited to talk to businesses like Google and Microsoft. His secret? A mix of smart pricing, clear positioning, and a mindset shift that helps you stop leaving money on the table. He's also an author of the best-selling book, Take Your Shot. I've got that over here. So today, we're going to be chatting about that and trying to understand a little bit how the system works behind the scenes. And when he's not coaching, he's breaking Guinness World Records. So we'll chat about that. Raises thousands for charity and is working towards removing 100 kilograms of plastic from the world's oceans through his partnership with War Ocean. So before we get into it, how are you qualified to talk about leads when you come from Gloucester?
I was just thinking, this guy Robin sounds really awesome, and then you that's your first question you asked me, Nicola. Goodness me. Well, no, believe it or not, it is possible in 2025 to run a global and international coaching practice. I've got clients in 26 different countries, and from my humble little studio here in the Cotswolds, Gloucestershire, just across the driveway from my house. And I think Mrs. Wade prefers it that way, so I'm kind of out the way. Rob's doing his business thing again. It's fine. He just keeps him out of trouble. So
It's when the screaming stops, I suppose she thinks that comes and checks on you. But I mean, when I was doing my research, I also see you went to, King's School, Gloucester, and Simon Pegg was there. And I was like, oh, Simon Pegg, you've probably got some great, he's probably much older than you. But anyway, those are two famous folks from your school. Let's get into actual work here. I want to talk about your book and the process behind Take Your Shot. This is very valuable for folks starting out in business and just trying to read through what a sales process looks like and what are some of the pitfalls, what are some of the things that you're going to go through that nobody tells you in an MBA.
Well, I think that's the key thing. I think a lot of people let their ego get in the way, and they think, right, mum or dad or their cousin has told them that their idea for a business is, they should just go for it. And of course, they launch themselves out there into the ether because we have this wonderful thing, the global marketplace at our fingertips. It's super easy to get set up with a business and go online and start pushing your wares out on sort of social media and set up a Shopify site and all of those various things. But part of that, though, is lulled us into a false sense of security, because if we rewind the clock a little bit and do stop me, Nicholas, if the theory and the history lesson is what you don't want your listeners to hear. But I've been in business since 2004, and back then I'll do some stats from the UK, but loosely speaking, they're similar, around the globe. In the UK 20 years ago, we had 468,000 registered small businesses. Today in 2025 now, we've got, close to 6 million in the UK alone. So there's 12 times the number of coaches, branding experts, designers, freelancers, dog groomers, medical estheticians, you name it, whatever business you're in, you've got 12 times the number of people competing locally in your geographical marketplace. The second shift which happened, and there's 3 shifts in total, second shift which happened during that time was then fast internet. So what that meant was that things like YouTube and streaming got better, video online, having access to a global marketplace of being able to kind of get clients from all different countries all around the world. And then, but what that means is you're not now just competing against 12 times the number of people locally, you're also then competing against this global marketplace. So it's already a very confusing place to be. And then in the mid 2010s, you then had the advent of social media. And of course, everybody's sort of thought process is, well, it's super easy to get online, and now super easy because of Facebook and X and LinkedIn and all of the different social media platforms. I'll be able to reach loads of people. And of course, what happens is they start posting content, which, let's face it, Nicholas, and I don't know if we're allowed to swear here, but essentially what they're doing is walking up to the abyss of social media and shouting, buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit. If you look at most of the posts, there's not much thought or, sophistication behind the marketing which they're using. They're just hoping that if I shout loud enough, then I might be able to sell something. So I think it's actually not so much about the sales process. It actually happens a lot earlier than that we've kind of been lulled into this false sense of security that it's easy to get online, sell something, whereas actually it's far harder than that. Now it's never been a better time to start a business, but also it's never been harder to actually market it and get your products and services out to your ideal sort of intended audience. So there are smarter ways to market. So you choose which direction you would like the conversation to go in next, Nicholas.
Yeah. Well, that shouting into the abyss, I think, is a great example of what the majority of people are doing, and it's that lack of intent behind marketing messaging that I think people struggle with. They see all of these channels, exactly as you mentioned. Got to be on Facebook, got to be on TikTok, got to be on Pinterest, got to be on YouTube, and none of it is actually leading anyone to a sale. It's not linked to a customer journey, so nobody knows. It's just, okay, well, that was nice to hear, but so what? So that goes, I suppose, into the first of your steps in your process, which is niche and messaging clarity. And I suppose this is sometimes the most difficult thing to do, because when you're starting out on a business, the world is your oyster. Everyone is your customer. And unless you are selling, very specific widgets that only fit into a certain slot, finding the exact target market for your idea, selling it, the world is your oyster. So, but that's one of the biggest challenges that folks have, because it becomes expensive. You are fighting against thunder, basically. And yeah, nobody knows why you're different. So maybe let's go into your why it's important to niche down and perhaps focus on that clarity of messaging in this, very complicated marketing environment people find themselves in.
That's it. I mean, so essentially, I think there's a lot of people as well out there touting marketing or touting themselves as being marketing experts. And actually, when you start to dig underneath it, there's not much depth to their knowledge. And so when we're talking about the market niche specifically, there's 3 layers to it. The first one is demographics, obvious, like, what industry your clients in, are they male, female, what age are they, where are they located geographically? And that's actually, believe it or not, where a lot of the gurus and experts kind of stop. They kind of go, oh, I'm really clever. Look at that. We've figured out who your ideal client avatar is, and we'll describe Deborah in lots of detail about where she lives and how old she is and stuff like that. However, it doesn't actually give us any information about how you can, reach out to that prospect, where do they actually hang out. So the second layer is then something called psychographics. So this is their behaviors or actions of your ideal client. What magazines do they read? What podcasts do they subscribe to and listen to? What YouTubers do they watch? What networking events do they go to? When they want to get their news, which websites do they go and sort of binge on? What Netflix programs do they like watching, each and every week? What car do they drive? So all of this information starts to give us clues about not only who our ideal client is, but where they hang out. Because I think, and this is this is the fourth wall. If you can break through this fourth wall, which is this global marketplace, means I can stay in my little studio and shout really loudly at everybody on social media. However, most of those people will choose to ignore you when you do that. And if you can get in the same room as somebody and actually have a conversation with them, i.e. go to them and make it really easy for them to consume your content. So what this might look like is, let's say, for example, there's a community group on Facebook where your ideal client hangs out. Well, don't just go there and start selling. Actually go in there and start adding some value. See if you can network with the person who owns that group and see if they can put you, on a pedestal in front of that audience and deliver maybe a 30-minute webinar to that group or Q&A session or something like that around your topic. So it's all about kind of finding creative ways to get in front of your audience, but you have to understand like where they hang out in the first place. And most people really struggle with that piece of detective work. And it's just desk-based research, like see how you can actually get in front of people. And then the third layer, which I think is the most interesting one, is then what I call the identity layer. So this is about really understanding, first and foremost, who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? How do you show up in the world? And this is why like tribes existed many years ago. Villages exist. There's lots of them in Gloucestershire, by the way, Nicholas. And why we gravitate towards similar sorts of people. And if somebody disagrees with our values, we kick them out of the village or out of the tribe and send them off into the wilderness, and they have to find another tribe or risk being eaten by wolves or something. And it's the same online. It's a tribal sort of mentality. And like, as a really simple example of this. So, the Fearless brand actually came out of I'm a big fan. I love surfing. I'm not particularly good at it, but I'm avid surfing, fan. I love cycling, so I go down hills at like 50 plus miles an hour on my push bike. I have this just slightly edgy side of me. Some might call it reckless, really, as opposed to fearless. But when I started my group coaching program, got people involved in it, and I got to know them at a deeper level. I noticed we had people who were doing ultra marathons, and we had other people who are doing like wild camping on Dartmoor, which is like the middle of nowhere here in the UK, on their own, and she was a woman who did this as well. So kind of there was this really sort of dangerous side to it. And each of my clients had this story, that's fearless story side to them, which they were telling me about. So I noticed that through my brand, I started to attract similar sorts of people to me. And that comes through actually, when I first started out coaching, this will make you laugh. I thought, because most of the coaches were grey haired, suited and booted, and, very, like in their 50s, old. So I thought I had to replicate that. So I used to wear a button down shirt and chinos and smart, shiny brown shoes. And I felt so insecure. I felt like a fish out of water. And it wasn't because I'm the t-shirt and jeans guy, like surfing. So it wasn't until I started showing up wearing my fearless t-shirt and my jeans and my DC shoes that I started to feel really comfortable in my own skin and attract the right sorts of clients into my business. So demographics, psychographics, and then most importantly, identity are massive important factors in getting the right ingredients together to understand who your ideal client is. And I want one final thing on this. If you think about marketing, just a very base layer, like a marketing 101. So identify who your ideal client is, figure out where they hang out, go to them to make it easy for them to consume your content. And then all you have to do is then show up regularly and often with that same consistent message, which isn't buy my shit. It's how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I help you solve problems with you and things like that. And if you do that consistently, it's a bit boring. I'm not going to lie. But you'll get really amazing results from it. And that's where, for me, it starts to get really exciting.
But you talk about it being marketing 101. I guess sometimes we who are in the marketing industry forget that it's marketing 101 to other folks or to us, but not to everyone else. These are things that you've had, over 20 years of experience. You've done this every day. Why do people struggle with those aspects of it? Is it because, as you said, it's boring, or do they focus on other parts of the business first? Or, why is it so difficult for people to get that basic stuff that you mentioned right? Well, basic to us, and again, I teach digital marketing, so I have to sometimes go backwards a little bit and show people how to use Control C, Control V. What are these basic things that we take for granted? What are the biggest roadblocks that people have just getting the basics right?
So from a psychological perspective, humans are great at overcomplicating things. So if you take a 2-hour task and give it 8 hours, you'll make it 4 times more complex to fill up the time, right? So when business owners are starting out, they've got loads of time typically because they haven't yet got all of the clients. And so they just fill up their time. And how do we decide what we're going to fill up our time with? Well, we go to social media because that's effervescent in front of us. And we start modeling what we see. And so we see all of these people doing that, buy my stuff type marketing. And we think we make the assumption that that's the right way to do it. Instead of kind of going back to those first principles of how do we get in front of our ideal audience and kind of the most efficient, least resistant sort of way. And I guess that there's also the side as well about individuals like to demonstrate their creativity through the activities which they do, especially in business as well. So they end up doing a lot of things which satisfy their own ego, irrespective and not reflecting necessarily on whether the results are working for, is producing decent results or not. So you see a lot of people who will blindly post a gazillion times a day on social media, not looking, well, there's 2 problems with that. They're not looking for the right result. So they look at likes, comments, and shares, and those don't pay the bills. It's whether you can actually convert those into engagement and inquiries. So they're reading the wrong metrics because that's what they've been taught by inexperienced marketers, 21-year-olds who are doing SMMA businesses, which we all know, social media marketing agencies now. It's like, what experience do they really have? So they're looking at the wrong metrics, but they're also not proactively then, nobody's teaching them this stuff, that there is a conversion between marketing and sales. If you actually want to take somebody from that marketing funnel, liking your content, into actually having a more in-depth conversation with them, it's you who has to be proactive. So most people's customer journeys are quite straightforward. There's like a step-by-step process. Post a bit of content, you like the post, we'll engage in Messenger, we'll offer you maybe jump into one of my webinars or events, and then maybe request a copy of the book, join my Facebook group, and then maybe we'll sit down and have a call. But I know what my process is. The likelihood is that probably 100% of the people out there, everyone, doesn't know what my process is. And so a lot of inexperienced marketers assume that somebody should know what the logical next step is, but they don't. And you must be familiar with Frank Kern. So he's one of like the internet founding, fathers of internet marketing, and he said the reason why most people fail at small business or don't have the success that they want in small business is because they don't put out enough offers. Now, what he didn't mean by that was buy one, get one free, or fast action discounts or things like that, which is quite often what we see in people's marketing. What he actually meant was we don't tell people about the next step in our process. And so they're left floundering, like, Robin's got all this great content, like, what do I do next? And kind of, I'm sat there twiddling my thumbs, hoping they'll click on something, and they're sat there twiddling their thumbs, hoping that Robin's going to tell them what to do next. So you have to literally take them by the hand and lead them through each and every step in the process to move them from marketing into your sales funnel.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to have that process or go through processes that have worked for other folks in the past, which is I'm sure what you're doing. And that I can't overemphasize that point that you've made, that you've got to take people through the process, take them by the hand. I really like that. And it's something we sometimes get so close to our businesses that we forget that everyone else isn't waking, sleeping, dreaming, eating our product and our business. And I see that, and I see that quite a lot. Number 2 is productization. I'm going to leave that out because that people can read in the book, and I think they need to get in touch with you on that. But I want to talk about pricing. Pricing is something that so many people have a problem with. And you spoke about it's not just about 2 for 1 and special offers in that. Let's maybe talk about how you see small and medium enterprises charging going into the future. I know you're very big on not charging per hour. So let's talk a little bit about that and some of the challenges around it.
Yeah, I mean, I have quite strong beliefs around hourly rate and day rate type charging because I genuinely believe it's quite an unethical way to charge. And there's clues as well in the way that people do this. So let's take, for example, if Nicholas, you're in the market for a new website, and I'm going to give you a beauty parade of 3 web designers. Okay, so web designer number 1, Steve, comes along, and he says it's going to cost you $50 an hour and take me roughly 20 hours. And you go, oh, $1,000. That feels like that's fair for a website. So off Steve trots, and then 3 months later he comes back and the website looks like a dog's dinner and it's got no blog or shopping cart on there. And you're a bit miffed, quite rightly, because you were expecting those. And he says, well, no problem, Nicholas, I can add those on for you, but it's going to cost you another 10 hours. And you're like, whoa, hold on. We agreed on $1,000 here. Like, why now are you charging me more money for this? So he reluctantly, because he's a good guy deep down, he reluctantly agrees to add on those things. He forgot to tell you that he's only been doing it like a very short period of time. He's not particularly good, and he priced too low. So he's got loads of clients because he's got gift of the gab so he can market and sell. But he's just a rubbish web designer. He forgot to tell you all of that, right? But now you're a bit annoyed because you didn't get what you want originally, and you felt like a bit ripped off because, and he's a bit annoyed because he feels like he's done too much work now and he deserves to get paid more. Okay. So there's our first clue that hourly rates don't really work. It generally tends to build up resentment because it's only within that person's interest to sell you more hours, i.e. to make more money. Okay. Web designer number 2 comes along. So Diana, let's call her. Diana's been doing it a while, so she's got lots of experience, but she doesn't know what Robin and Nicholas know about pricing. So she's also charging $50 an hour. She goes away, comes back a week later. You go, God, the website looks amazing. It's got the blog, the shopping cart, your best please. And she hands you an invoice for 10 hours work, $500. So hang on a second. The person who is better, does it faster, gets paid half what the inexperienced guy got paid. That doesn't make sense. It's not fair. So again, that's our second clue that hourly rates don't really work. You would expect the person with more experience to get paid more. And then we've got our third web designer. He's an absolute website ninja. Michael comes into the show and he's like, I'll build you a website in 72 hours. We'll knock it out the park. We're not going to bother with the block or shopping cart because I know what you need. You need a landing page funnel with a lead magnet on it that's going to generate qualified leads for your business. And Nicholas, if I can't get you 30 leads by the end of this month, fully qualified, I'll refund you all the money you paid, and I'll give you $1,000 for wasting your time. And you think, God, that's a great deal. I can spend that on the other two if it doesn't work out. Now, Michael's charging $10,000 for his website, so significantly more than the others, but he's that confident and he knows the value of your clients in getting those qualified leads for your business that you think, okay, if he does what he says he can do, I can earn my money back in the first month and then I'm in profit every month thereafter. So that's where you shift out of hourly rate charging into being able to articulate your value based on the outcomes, the dream outcome that you deliver for your clients rather than based on the thing which you do. And a lot of people, they don't, if you ask somebody to kind of, could you guarantee your offer? What's the 100% money back guarantee around your offer? They'll back away from that. And what does that tell you? It tells you that they don't have 100% confidence in their offer. They use words like, it depends. And we know it depends is code for it. First of all, it's a swear word at Fearless HQ if clients ever say that to me. Because it depends means I'm not very confident in my offer. I do too many things for too many different people. And lo and behold, if you don't do your part of the deal, then I lose out because now it's my fault. So therefore, I'm not going to give guarantees. The role of a business owner is to simplify their offer, turn it into a really boring business, okay? So that it becomes like you do one thing really well for one specific type of client. You have it systemized and process driven. So every client has the same experience right the way through your process. And then at the end of it, they all get similar results. And that way you then become known as an expert. And again, it just comes back to that one thing of like, if I let my ego take over, I want to be able to put my artistic creativity in every project that we work on. I want to work with a variety of clients because it makes my work more interesting. You notice a lot of the words are I and my. It's very ego driven and people don't like running a boring business. But Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, there's all these amazing leaders of these awesome companies that have made billions on building, quite frankly, quite boring businesses.
I'm feeling if I can just say, my ass is burning a little bit now because you've just made me realize that one of the big challenges I've had throughout my entire life is I wanted variety and and I'm just thinking now, I've just had my whole life sort of do a slideshow in my head and go, I wanted to do this, and hundreds of things. And I did, but it's no good. It means in terms of specialization, in terms of the niching down, as you mentioned, becoming known for that particular thing, you struggle in that. So I think folks who are starting out in business get used to it's not about necessarily being bored, but get joy out of being the best or being the go-to person for that. And once you start going into the details, it's like going into Wikipedia. If you've ever been onto a Wikipedia page about World War One, okay, there's World War One, but then there's the Eastern Front, the Western Front, then there's the Germans and the blah, blah, and you can just go deep, and that's just World War One. That's excluding all the 1,000 other wars that have happened, or however many wars have happened throughout history. So you can get enjoyment and excitement about it. And one day somebody's going to ask you a specific question. You're going to be the person that comes that comes out for that. So you're 100% correct. I love that. So we've spoken about niching, getting your clarity done, and about pricing. I'm not going to ask you about the difference between the service pricing like you've done for a website versus owning a dog parlor, because you can't charge 10 hours. I mean, if the dog needs its haircut, how are we going to charge for that? So maybe that's something we discuss on another show.
We can dig into it actually.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a really good example.
Yeah.
So again, there's obviously, there are multiple moving parts to a business. And so one of the things a lot of people underestimate is time, and i.e. their capacity to be able to deliver that. So you take that dog grooming parlor, for example. Well, let's say, again, hypothetically, that the owner of that dog grooming salon wants to get maybe $100,000 a year. Okay. And let's break it down. So that's roughly $10,000 a month, which they want to earn. Now, if they're charging, let's say, $50 a groom, and we divide the big number by the little number, well, in this instance, they need to be grooming 200 dogs a month, right? So then we can start to interrogate those numbers. Well, actually, they realize that they're working only part-time, 3 days a week. And so 200 grooms a month actually probably goes down to maybe 20 dogs a day. And their eyes pop out their head and they go, well, how on earth can I groom that many dogs a day? So already just with, probably asking maybe 4 or 5 questions about the numbers within the business, we can see that their numbers are just out of whack. They're never going to hit 10K because the natural earnings capacity is limited by the fact that they're not charging enough for that one service. And it might be that maybe what they've got to get to is where it doesn't have to be directly on the grooms, for example. So funny enough, this is something I know a lot about. I'm actually a mentor on a program for dog groomers, so I know a lot about this industry.
That might be why I brought it up.
There we go. So that's one of the many hats which are, or not many hats which I run, but I'm an associate coach in several groups. That's one of them. But so we don't just double our prices without adding any extra value, because I don't feel that, again, that that's ethical. What we want to do is we want to increase our prices, but then rather than being stuck in this sales cycle of doom at $50 for a groom, they sell, deliver, and then we get ill or you go on holiday and then it stops. Then we take a big deep breath and off we go again. What we do is we charge more money, which means now we've got a bit more time to deliver a better quality service. Could be we're going to specialize in not just doing the basic wash and cut, wash and blow dry, whatever. We're going to give them a full they call it a mud spa, which is where they get mud around the face, the feet. So we're going to give them a mud spa, and we're going to trim their nails. So we get all these upsells which you can also include into it. Okay. But we've got more time to deliver that. So the dog comes out, owner's really pleased. So they refer more people because the results are better. You get more money on the back end because they come back more often, and etc. So you create this holistic sort of virtuous cycle. And it might be, if we have to get through the base groom price plus upsells, we have to get to $125 a groom. We figure out how to get there, because if that means then being or under capacity, but getting our 10K target, it's just about understanding the basic economics of the business, and price, capacity, and value are all a part of being able to figure that out.
Yeah, the figuring out the financials is again, sounds like it's simple and everyone should know it, but I've often asked folks, they've started a business and I say, how much do you want to earn this year? So what do you want to turn over? And they don't know. Or they say, $1 million. I say, okay, what does this $1 million look like? And you've explained the process quite nicely. Break it down over the 12 months, break it down per day, break it down per hour, per service, etc. And then see, is it actually physically possible to do this? We can't even go to sales processes and mindset and accountability. We might have to do that another time. So there's obviously, I can see that the coaching process that you would go through touches on all of these angles. And for folks who are perhaps have started out and have hit a roadblock, or have been doing it for a little bit and want to be given a bit of a boost, they should get in touch with you. So where are they going to get in touch with you?
Yeah, great question. So the topics we've been talking about, I put videos out a couple of times a month on YouTube. So they can jump onto YouTube, search for Robin Waite. You'll find my videos on there, and obviously give it a little subscribe. And each of these topics, I go into a bit greater detail and kind of break it down into the step-by-step process for each one. But Nicholas, we can't show the book without making it available to the people watching and listening in as well.
Absolutely.
So I've got a little stack of signed copies that are desperate for new homes. So if anybody is interested in like a physical signed copy of the book, they can head on over to fearless.biz/TYS. There is an option to cover postage, but it's entirely optional. If you put your address in, I'll send it, no matter where you are in the world. And there's an extra bonus prize. If you live in a weirder place than Mongolia, believe it or not, I've sent a book to Mongolia. You'll get an extra bonus prize if I deem the country that you live in to be weirder than Mongolia.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to encourage our listeners to do that then. Hopefully, so this. I don't know if the Orkney Islands is exotic, but I suppose no.
Yeah,
that's
pretty exotic. They've got some weird and wonderful creatures that live on Orkney.
Exactly. Well, and I would recommend again. Here's my version, and it is signed. He's not just saying that, and it is not signed by a robot. This is real. This is real ink, as written by a real human being. Robin, it's been great chatting to you. And I hope folks get in touch with you to get that book, but also to perhaps get involved with some coaching for you. And I've seen your videos. There's great value there. You're one of those guys who's putting free value out there, because it's the process that counts. So go and learn, go and catch up on what Robin's doing. And yeah, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Nicholas.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's kuhne.no for more information.